but we did check in about the agenda, and she was she added her 2 cents. You joining us for exec? And I see Golgun, I see that you're here. Thanks for joining us. And I know that Mary was optional, and I don't believe that she's here. But that's okay. So I think for our purposes, we don't necessarily need a quorum, I don't think.
Correct. We're not voting on anything.
Yeah, we're just agenda setting and discussing. Okay, so is it okay if we just jump in, and if we don't even use all of the time, perhaps, like, that's fine. With Calvin not being here, with us not having yet nominated Mandy, we just got a slim crew, which I think is fine. But I did send what I had put together, which was really dense, and I can't imagine that we're going to be able to get through it all. But I just wanted to at least touch on it, or just like, I'm trying to kind of like keep things on the agenda that we maybe should be doing for my own tracking purposes from month to month. Like, and if we don't do them because we're starting to change focus or things come up as they have, I mean, it is what it is. It's just like it, we are sort of accountable to come up with work plans. It's funny, I didn't realize that we were until I looked at the bylaws again, and I was like, oh, this was supposed to be happening all along. And it hadn't been for a while, but I think that that's okay. We all know kind of the journey that we've been on these past few years, and why and how that's happened. And it's been impressive what we've accomplished, especially amidst all of the challenges. So the first thing is just to give an update. We are letter to the Audit Committee and the Department of Civil Rights, and I can tell you that we do have a meeting with the interim director of the Department of Civil Rights. His name is Franklin. I'm not sure, Tina did facilitate setting something up for Janae and I to meet with him on Friday.
Thank you, Tina.
Yeah, so that's exciting. And, clearly, like, I am, I think I'm not even asking, Janae has positioned herself to advocate on our behalf, both with her letter that she authored, as well as, just she's really articulate about, being able to describe what it's been like for her to be an arts commissioner from a community of color living in the ward that she lives in, and, her experience and her concerns that we share. And so allowing her the space to center her experience in that dialogue, I think, is kind of going to be my approach. And, she's going to be asking, like, what resources are there? It's more of a kind of like an exploratory conversation about, like, is there any way that particular department could provide some guidance to us? So I'm excited about that conversation, and I'm sorry that it hasn't happened, but I think it's something that we will be excited to share when it does happen. And, we'll definitely include that on our agenda for our broader MAC meeting, that Janae can fill us in about what took place and if there's any next steps, which I hope there are. My next update is that we did not receive any response to the audit committee letter from any of the 52 people that were CC'd on it. Which I'm like, Tina is very thorough. You are excellent at what you do, Tina. I just have to always give you a little bit of kudos. I think differently about this all the time. I kind of like my opinion about, like, and I'm sure you all share some of the insecurity about, like, the advocacy piece versus what we're dealing with in our times right now, and the tensions in our city. Even as I approached tonight's conversation, I went for a walk to kind of clear my head, and I feel like, I don't want to be in a position to be someone who's on the inside screaming at our electeds on the inside, right? Like, there's already so much negativity happening that if I could scream at them, I would scream that we want to help. and that we want to utilize these, 800 some hours that we dedicate annually to support the city and its arts programming in a meaningful way that is helpful and that, really, finds them leveraging our talents and our abilities. And I know even as this is an ongoing problem, our diversity, and who we represent. And so I'll kind of let you guys just go ahead and kind of talk about how you might be feeling too, because you're sort of in the charge with it. But, I do really feel as if, for me personally, if my time is not of some value to this work, that's more than just that rubber stamp committee situation. I mean, the projects that bring me to the table that I care about personally, professionally, I have to recuse myself from anyway. So if I can't provide an impactful and a meaningful use of my time and my talents and abilities that is valued by my community and then I personally do not feel like this role is one that I want to continue on. It devalues my abilities as a person who has a lot of passion for the arts and for artists, for our community. It's just I want to use my time in a way that's really helpful. And if the system that we're in right now just has lost its function or didn't have a function or just wasn't realized, and no one's willing to talk about it, I feel like I've kind of reached the end of the path. So I don't know. What are you guys thinking? I don't mean to, that's not the best way to start the conversation. I'm so sorry. But, that's kind of just where I'm sitting at.
Wow. Where to start with that, Joan? But yeah, I'm torn because I've appreciated two perspectives that people have brought forward. One is we should start saying things and asking for the things we think need to happen and making things happen by virtue of declarative. And then the other side of it is, how do we work within the structures that exist to try to bring stronger attention to a diversity of voices, and those things are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but going ferociously down one path sort of precludes a little bit going down the other path. So and I hear you saying you have a skill level that is hard to beat in terms of managing systems and trying to find a way to make us effective as an organization, both through the challenges of COVID and through the challenges of just not really being very front of mind for any of our elected leaders in how they want to orient towards the arts in the city. With all of that expertise, I totally understand why you're if this isn't going to work, why am I dedicating time and resources to it? And I buy that 100%. And I guess at this point been on the commission longer than anyone else who's on the board. And I think Gulgoon, who bless her heart, is here today. And I mean that sincerely and not in the nasty Southern way of she's crazy, right? I remember specifically talking with her when I entered onto the commission many years ago now about the need for change at the commission level and the need to find a way to be more impactful. We're going to year on year struggle with this. I am like you, and I don't understand a purpose behind continuing to strive if we can't land anywhere with it. And it does feel then, all right, then this maybe has charted its course, and it's time for whatever it is that might come in its place to come in its place. And whether that's an artist-led council or whatever that looks like for the city, I start to feel like that's it's past time in a way for that to happen. And if the only way that can happen is for us to all acknowledge we've tried and we can't make it happen this way, maybe that is, I don't know, that's where I'm at, which is not very much more optimistic than you are, I think, Joan. Sorry for the noise here. I have cats randomly attacking one another.
It's really, it's pleasant in the strangest way. It's a hard conversation, so having a random that's kind of awesome. Okay. Lana, how are you doing? Where are things sitting with you? Because you have a really great and fresh perspective, probably fresher perspective than Lisa or I in a way. So I'm really curious what you're feeling and thinking at the moment about the state of things.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what we're saying here. I think we're all echoing the same sentiments that our time and our talents are of value. And I think for me, I feel like we're finally scratching the surface. I've only been on the commission for a year, so it's still kind of fresh for me. But, it feels like the wheels are starting to turn in a direction of seeking some answers. And I hope that will promote some answers for us. For me, the questions I have are more of how the city wants us to play a role in this. Like, us asking to come to the table doesn't do anything if nobody wants us there or doesn't see value in that. And I think this is a good, strong start to putting our voice out there and saying we are, diverse in our representation from various wards, and we want to, amplify a lot of that with our inclusion for the next commissioners. And we want to know that when we're welcoming people, that they are valued and that their work is heard. So that's where I'm at. I'm actually pretty hopeful though for 2021. I sent an email back with Joan. I heard back from my council member, Jeremy Schrader, who was in touch with CVP Jenkins after some of the, arts resolutions that went through to council without our knowledge. And I'm hopeful that just acknowledging that those things are happening and that we would like to be helpful when time allows. I understand the process is such that time is always going to be of the essence. So how do we make ourselves more flexible? I mean, I think we are pretty flexible, but, just saying that we're very open to even things on short notice. We got a lovely email this last week about joining the, Black community perspectives and what's going to happen next at George Floyd Square. It was like a day before, but I was able to say, okay, well, that's a really important conversation. So I, at least listened to the, roundtable discussion about that. And I was happy to be notified that it was happening because it would not have been on my radar at all. So thanks, Tina. That was great. And I felt like that was a really important piece of the puzzle and one of the things that we've been asking for. So seeing those two things in the first few weeks of the new year gives me hope that we can make some more traction going forward. So that's where I'm at.
That's great, Lana. That kind of leads me to, hi, Ellie. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about where we're at with how we're feeling about sort of the letters that were sent and where we're at with it. I updated the group that we have a meeting with the interim director for the Department of Civil Rights, but that we haven't gotten a response from anybody on the audit committee about our recommendation for an internal audit. And just, kind of mulling over the sort of the emotional sort of place for all of these situations. Like, we want to be helpful. I personally don't want to be screaming at my electeds and city staff to include me if it's not helpful. But at the same time, if it's not helpful, I don't want to waste my time doing this role because it's very time consuming and I could be doing better work in another place. So we're just kind of talking about it, and I don't want to summarize what everyone has said so far, but basically I was just asking how everyone else is feeling, and Lisa is kind of feeling somewhat similar. But, has her own sort of take on, because she has just a good historic continuum with the commission and, what's possible. And then Lana is feeling sort of hopeful because we've actually made some big decisions and made some big movements. How are you feeling about where things are at for you in your service and sort of what, the situation we find ourselves in right now?
I mean, I guess with everything that's going on right now, it's like at moments I start feeling like some of those sort of disaffected council members who are like, who's got time for the arts when the rest of the world is falling apart?
Right.
But then on the other side, it's like, yes, of course, the argument for the arts can always be made. I am so busy, just professionally, that I don't want to deliver subpar work, and I just feel like it's been very difficult for me to do something meaningful, really, for the commission. And I think I'm more on the lines of like, it may be time, getting closer to the time to resign, but only because I feel like it was a comment that you made last week, I think, or the last time we spoke, Joan, and you said we could actually be taking this time and really like donating this time and labor to any small arts organization and we could be turning them around. Like between all of us, we're a board of directors or something. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm conflicted. I'm holding all those emotions.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. And I mean, if it's hard to continue to volunteer for a body that feels as if it's not, you're not wanted or that you're not like doing good work. And I know that Mary really did make a valiant effort in trying to let us know how important we are to her and her work. And I don't want to downplay the fact that that's very true, and where we show up mostly is in, being able to support her projects, and they're great projects. And I personally am very proud of them with artists that are amazing, and really excited for the new building, really excited for a lot of, there's a lot of stuff in the works, but yeah, it's a broken record situation. And so one of the things that gave me some energy that I would want to share with you is, if we spent this entire year reimagining the Minneapolis Arts Commission's relationship with the city, and just that's what we did. We didn't, we can still support Mary, but that really our focus is on establishing a meaningful path towards being a valued body of volunteers that are uniquely experienced and skillful in supporting the arts in the city of Minneapolis, right? Like, and all of this, like all of these other sort of things that we were trying to advance, like, the inclusivity stuff, the age, all of the other stuff that's like shown up on our work plans, which I do feel is like really important, and we should be moving that stuff forward. It feels as if it all kind of falls flat at the end of the day when our role has like such a little amount of agency or alignment or definition. So I'm just curious if like that gives anybody else energy. If we just like stop the press, the work plan is establishing our role and eliminating the ambiguity.
Absolutely. I mean, Joan, I think a lot of
chime
our work plans are joining with that already. I think policy and advocacy, developing relationships with their council members is a good start on that. I think access and engagement, trying to be, quote, out in the community / in virtually. I think we're all kind of working toward that. It could easily be reconfigured to support that as an overall goal. Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Golgun, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
Oh, sorry. I don't disagree at all with what Alana says. And by the way, before I start, I'm sorry, I'm on my end of my walk. I didn't get a walk today, and I need it for my mental health. So I'm just finishing it up. I'll be back at home soon.
That's okay. I'm glad you're doing
that. So
that.
I wanted to let you guys know, I think we're all struggling with the same thing, just from a different perspective. As city staff, I get stuck between department heads and their directives, council members and their directives, and what you guys want to be involved in. So it's very, very hard to support you, as I've said over and over again, when my boss says no, or when council members say no, because at the end of the day, I'm a staff person hired in an institution, and they are the people that I'm accountable to, right? So they approve my paycheck, and they approve my work performance. So it's very hard for us as staff when there's a contradictory request or a request that goes against a directive. So I just want to note that we're all in very difficult positions, and I'm very, very sympathetic to everything you're all saying, because I feel as though arts and culture in general has been sidelined in terms of what I'm experiencing as well, without a doubt. So that's just, I just wanted to add my voice and say, I hear you, I see you, I understand, and it's very hard. I get it. It's very hard for me as well. And I just don't know where to turn because I don't have power to some degree.
Thank you.
There was one thing I wanted to add in terms of answering your question, and this is probably a question for Tina and for the clerk. I don't know what ability a community advisory board, because that's at the end of the day what a commission is, gets to determine what it does outside of the policy that put it there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think a good conversation with the clerk's office would help clarify that. So you're not all feeling at the end of the day like you put a lot of energy towards something and it didn't go anywhere because of bureaucracy. So
Yeah.
I advise that. I think finding out what levers you have to sort of determine, and I think what you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is more meaningful connection. So that would be a directive to my office, a directive I'm hoping to other offices, because I'm not the only office that spends arts and culture money. There's much more money being spent by other places than me, to tell them how you want to get involved. So I don't know if you can do that without council telling you, because at the end of the day, think about it from your organization's perspective. You're put together as an accountability mechanism to the community. And that's what all commissions are supposed to be. So you don't have the same authority, at least where I stand, as a council member or my boss would. Does that make sense?
It does, and I
saying
think
this is-
that's why we are advancing the ordinance compliance angle, that there
that
is
makes sense.
like
That
literally
totally
a
makes sense.
policy that exists
Yeah,
that states
yeah,
what
yeah.
we are supposed to be
Right.
a part of, and that's not happening. So that's
and
why
what the ordinance doesn't do is outline in detail what that means. So in terms of Mary's work, it does, which is really good. And so there's structures there. But in terms of all the others of the city's arts and culture work, broadly speaking, it doesn't. And I think that's where we are all not served by the ordinance. Staff aren't served, elected officials aren't served, and nor are departments. So people are interpreting them any way they want to. And that's where clarity needs to happen, is
Right.
identifying what that is. But I'm not sure if a commission can do that right in ordinance on its own without an invitation from staff and from council members. So I think getting some clarity from the clerk, because you can plan all you want, and at the end of the day, you won't have the mechanisms in law to say you can do that, and that will just lead to more frustration. I just don't want you guys to be any more frustrated than you already are, and I'm just sort of, I'm advising caution and doing some background conversations, having some background conversations with the clerk's office, so you know to what extent can you lead, and to what extent do you need to get into someone else's bus, Does that make sense?
it does in a way. I think the ordinance is pretty clear. I don't think it's that vague. We are supposed to be briefed in any decision making that's related to, I mean, you can read it. I think the ordinance, it was recently updated in 2015, I believe, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so,
was
and
the
it
most
was,
recent
and that
one.
was a project that was led by the Arts Commission also.
Yep.
So I think
Well,
that,
it was actually Mary's office that made an adjustment to the public arts
right.
funding mechanism and invited the Arts Commission to participate. So the question around briefing then, if the language says briefing, and
It doesn't say briefing, it says, I guess I don't want to quote it right now,
Yeah,
but
sure.
but it's clear in what it states. And so what the question isn't about what work we should be participating in, because that's clearly defined in the ordinance. The question is like, what does compliance look like?
Right.
What does ordinance compliance look like?
Is briefing when the work has already been done and someone's showing up and saying, here, it's already been done, and this is what we're telling you it is? Or is briefing as the sausage is being made in the sausage factory? And
briefing isn't used in the ordinance, so I don't want you to attach yourself to the word briefing.
Sure.
But
I think that's what I'm trying to point at.
It's decision making.
Right. So
okay.
decisions and how decisions are made can be done in lots of different ways, and that's what I'm trying to point out. Is what are things that are preventing staff from legally coming to you, because there are legal reasons why we can't, and what are the things that are preventing staff from coming to you because the mechanisms aren't there. It's just oh, did you know?
Though, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Gulgoon, but we all know that there is ordinance and there is policy, which is sort of how ordinance gets interpreted.
Yes.
And I think what we haven't
practices.
seen here is policy that seems to honor the intent of the ordinance. We've seen
policies and practices, I would add, Lisa.
Yeah,
it's three things. Right.
So I feel like the ordinance, as Joan said, is less of an issue than it is how the ordinance gets interpreted across policy. And that's not something that's specifically legal. That's more about how the city carries out its business. And
so if that's the issue, then the question is, back to me again, I would have this first question back to if someone said to me, X commission or Y commission, let's say the Food Council wants to do something and my department maybe is doing something around food, but we've never gone to the Food Council to ask permission or have that conversation. I'd want to know what are the policies that tell me I have to go to the Food Council. Because I have a process list when I have to buy things, when I have to contract with people, and I can check off those steps for that work. But
I mean, I want to hesitate. I don't think we need to dive that deeply into the weeds. I mean, when we look at the ordinance, it's pretty clear that, well, to advise the city council with respect to arts related matters. I realize that's broad and it's not specific on policy, but the intent is there. So the question is, I mean, I don't think, I'm not going to say it's on staff to make sure that happens. But if we're looking at ways we undertake to do what is defined in the ordinance, then how is that happening? And what are the policies and practices that ensure that that happens? And where is that not happening? And the where is it not happening is a lot right now.
A lot.
So it's not just in your area.
I know.
So I mean, I just don't want us to get too, obviously any bureaucracy, it's a challenge to understand all the levers and how we landed in a place and how that gets interpreted across various department heads and all of that. And it's not that that's not important. It's just, I think the thing for us is that the higher principle that's expressed in the ordinance is that we're to advise and we're not advising, we're that
right.
Arts related matters, right?
Although you historically have advised on various selection committees in terms of my work. I mean, definitely Our Town, definitely Creative City Making. There has been advising in the past. I think when I sit down and look at,
sir, I don't think we've advised council. I haven't seen a moment where council has sought the commission
directly
advice on anything, right?
So That's
Right.
a whole
I'm
different
just
thing,
saying, like,
yeah.
this is what's in chapter
Yeah,
36.
yeah. But that's
You
my
know.
question, because I mean, I do this when we put artists into work of other departments, and they have processes and practices which are detrimental to inclusion of the arts and inclusion of diverse communities. So we do this, and there's a lot there around policies and practices, because ordinances are sort of a big, it's a novel, and the policies and practices are the poems. They're very specific, and they direct the city on how to behave, what behaviors they're expecting. Not so much on the practices side, that's more culture change, but the policies for sure. So when someone steps, it doesn't do something or executes it incorrectly, then we pull out that legislation and we say, actually, it's our policy to do this first before you do this. And that's, unfortunately, that's the level at which I would need as a staff person, to have that direction from council on what the expectations are, because I'm measured when I do my performance review at the end of the year. I need to know that it's going to be based on how I've executed. So I'm just saying that it is the devil's,
Balloon, we're in the same
unfortunately, in the
position.
details. Yeah.
We're in exactly the same position where we need to be able to measure at the end of the year
Yes.
what we were able to accomplish.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
as a group,
yeah,
mostly for us, we receive a failing grade. And none of us are willing to continue to dedicate time and effort to something that isn't, we don't have proof, we don't have results, we don't have impact.
Right. And to that point, Lisa, I completely understand that, and I see it and I hear it. To that point, in order for us to do that, I'm just trying to say that detail is needed. But that said, in order to answer back to Joan's question of should you spend the year, I don't know the answer to that question, because I don't know what levers you have as a group of an advisory body to deal with policies and practices, procedures within city, execution of work. I just don't know. I think we would need some guidance from the clerk's office to say, you can advise on this, and this aspect. I just don't know. I don't want you guys, again, to be frustrated by putting a lot of energy into moving something forward, and then again, council members say, well, we didn't want this, or department heads say, we don't agree with this. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just counseling you guys to talk to the clerk's office, because I feel like the clerk's office knows, like commission rules and regulations. I certainly don't. I certainly don't. I would look to them for advice. And also Tina and Mary. I'm assuming, Tina, you are in close conversation with the all boards and commissions group, because Tina meets regularly with them, just to ask, where are the bumpers? Where can you be effective, if that's what you choose to do? I'm not debating it. I'm simply saying that you should do that, because those are the natural things that come up for me. If I'm a staff person and I'm being asked to change usual behavior, then I need to know where's the guidance, so that this new behavior can be the behavior you're looking for. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that was at the crux of wanting to have an audit, because I think that would help us to define compliance and like what it means to be compliant with decision making, especially around budget lines that have anything to do with capital investments in the arts, and any other investments, planning, evaluation of what says in the ordinance. So asking for the city to help us to define compliance with our ordinance in activities that have happened over the course of the past year or two was really our way of trying to fast track a better understanding overall, both for ourselves as a body, but also for all of those folks who are involved. And I know that that's probably resources that may not, want to be utilized in that particular way, but hopefully it brings the conversation forward that, like, what does it mean to comply with the ordinance that is written on behalf of the Arts Commission? because we have canvassed and we have asked this question to pretty much anybody that we could, that made sense for us to reach out to, and we got a different answer from every single person. And so it's impossible for us to get like clear guidance from one or two or three different people because everybody has a different opinion.
And same with staff, meaning because you're getting a different response. When we ask the question of should the Arts Commission should be included in this or not, which we do regularly, there's a different answer. So I just want you to know that.
Right. So it makes sense to say like, okay, let's hold the process to the process, right? Like, let's have the process feed the process so that we all have an understanding of what it means to comply with this ordinance. With people who are in a position to examine that, especially from a budgetary position, which is kind of where we're coming from. It's like, it's one thing to have, to come to the commission and give updates, right? Like, that's great. We welcome that. We appreciate that. It's something altogether different to understand how you engage the commission in decision making, which is the question that we have been asking everyone, how that happens and what that looks like. And if policies need to be better defined around what compliance looks like, that's something that I feel would be useful of our time at this juncture to like figure that.
But my question is, defined by whom? Who gets to define that? Is that the council that gets to define that? My guess is yes. And that the clerk needs to identify who gets to define those things.
Right.
And that's why I'm going back to your question, Joan. It's your question, as at least as I understood it, is should you spend your work plan, your precious time in the next year in defining how you want to move forward. I mean, that may be a good exercise so you guys are clear, but then the question is who has the authority to put those things into the ordinance? I'm guessing again, it's the council, because the council created the commission and the council wrote the ordinance and the council gets to approve it. Everything I do goes always back to the council. So it's going to be those guys, because it's those guys that tell my boss and tell me how they want us to move forward on anything.
Yep. So that's the journey that I'm proposing. So it's not, I do not have those answers. That is the journey that I am proposing we consider as a 2020 work plan, because all of the other sort of, initiatives that we have been trying to advance in our work plans and our subcommittees have come to a grinding halt. We are accountable to have a work plan. And I have felt from the, just commissioners quitting, leaving early, resigning, claiming that they're frustrated, that they're burned out, that they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing, that there's just a lot of confusion. Our council members giving us all kind of different answers about the value we provide to their processes, it's almost as if there's really nothing else that makes a lot of sense in my mind to define at this point. Because we can, to your point, extend our efforts to do a bunch of different things. We're all very capable of doing many different things, but for what reason? What good, like how at the end of the day does that leave any kind of impact that we can measure? And, personally for me, it's like if we're not really focusing on how this particular governing, this advisory, this, we are appointed as commissioners, and there is a process and that happens for that to happen. What are we leaving for the next group of commissioners? Because what's been happening has been concerning, and we're not getting good feedback when people leave about their experience. So that, I think, and we've discovered that this is a big part of the root of that, is that the ambiguity of what agency we actually have and how we're valued at the city level. And this ordinance that, when you go to apply to be an arts commissioner, you read this ordinance and it really, it says something completely different than what the reality is of what we actually do. So that's a problem. And so we get all these really talented people starting out with a lot of energy at the top of the year, who then feel completely lost mid-year. And, we got to solve for that. And if we can't solve for that by utilizing the processes that are in place, then what? You know, like what I mean, I'm kind of hitting a wall, and maybe we need new leadership. You know, I'm not the one.
I totally understand. I guess my next question to you guys is it wise to bring new people on, given that these big questions you're asking? Just that process you described. I know that there are new people coming this year, and again, I don't know how many people are on board. I don't know what Tina can advise on what the rules are about how many you need versus, because I don't manage you all. CPED manages you.
Yeah.
So I
we have
hate
6
to,
vacancies currently, so we have a
Right.
nice big slate, and we've looked at that as one of the things that's like one of our biggest opportunities we have in the moment is that slate and where those who fills that slate. And so we've been having, that's another item on our agenda, which I think we probably aren't going to get to, but like trying to bring in students and BIPOC youth. And have not been effective at some of the different routes that we've tried to bring that opportunity to young people. So we have been connected with some educators in the Minneapolis school system, and just, you know, for obvious reasons, people just don't have the capacity to imagine how that might play out. And so it's really difficult for us to be able to advance that idea in this difficult time. But that was one of the things that we had a good conversation around, and that we are generating a lot of energy that, like, oh my gosh, six young people from communities of color from wards that we feel need to have a voice would be a great value to this commission, but they would also need to feel as if they were valued. And I would hate to bring new people on in the current state of things. With all of the feedback that we know and that we've been given from our commissioners.
Right, absolutely. So that's the other thing I wanted to say is there's nothing worse than showing up and sitting on a committee and then finding out that you've wasted your time. There's nothing, you know, it's really, really disenfranchising to do that. So given the level of turmoil, as far as this is concerned, and lots of unanswered questions, what is the best step to, at least that was going through my mind, what is the best step to ensure that when people do come on, those lines are clearer, that, you know, et cetera, the work's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, when we're not getting a response from anybody from another action.
Well, I'm not participating either because I'm being told it's not my job to. So it's right now I'm waiting and I haven't heard anything either. No one's called me.
Okay, that's good to know. So I guess with the little bit of time that we have left, what does our agenda look like for our January MAC meeting? Because that's really what we need to solve for right now.
Joe, did we determine that exec can provide what a if exec can provide what Mary may need in terms of approvals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And because of the way Mary has engineered her process, there's usually a few different points for input from artists, from community on the projects before they land at the MAC in any case. So that's one helpful thing about how process has gone to this point. So I guess that's me just asking, if we have a means for exec to do approvals, then what is the business of the MAC? And I think Joan has suggested to us all that the business of MAC should be to figure out what the business of the MAC is.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can continue to go forward without engaging in a recruiting process when we don't know what we're going to tell people, I mean, I don't think it's helpful to bring younger people into a process that's dysfunctional either.
Agreed.
Like, maybe if you had 6 young people all joining simultaneously, it would create enough of a stir that something different could happen. But like, when you look at how young people will have to participate and the inflexibility we've had in the past for participation and how many can you miss and can you attend
all
via
that.
Zoom and all of that. It feels like kind of a pipe dream to make something like that happen in this current environment. So
I think it's not even kind of like it is. You know, I feel a sense of accountability for talented youth from communities of color to serve in the current state of things right now. Like it's not.
I'm gonna say one more thing and then I'm gonna shut up because I've talked way too much. But
No.
I feel like if the process is allowed to continue the way it always has, even just with the executive committee providing like a sign off on something,
Mm-hmm.
where is the bump in the road that tells folks this can't continue like it is? I don't know. And is that it? I'm going to shut up now. That's just
No, I hear you. Like, when does it finally change? Like, what is the lever that, like, hi, Mary, thanks for joining. Oh my goodness, she took her hard hat off. Oh, yes, I think that that's a really great question. What will bring change? I don't know. Maybe that's part of our agenda. I don't know. I'm asking you for just some guidance about it too, because maybe we get some communications between now and then. We are going to talk with the interim director, who hopefully will have some helpful advice for us. But it just feels like I don't feel comfortable advocating for everyone to advance work plans. I don't feel comfortable advocating for everybody to advance new nominations. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable having a retreat at the moment. I don't know if anybody else does. Just really being accountable to people's time and energy levels and stuff like that. So I don't know if we discuss the possibility of exec taking on executive functions for the Arts Commission and the broader commission body going on pause, or focusing on change and what that might look like. I don't know. Any thoughts from anybody?
Don't you think you should give these letters a little time?
Oh yeah, totally. We will. I mean, obviously.
Before you make any decisions. Maybe you should meet with, his name Fred?
We're going to meet with him on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, so you meet with him and did you also plan on resending the letter to the audit committee since it went out over the holidays?
We could.
And I noticed on the schedule that the audit committee meets 4 times a year.
Their next meeting's February 8th.
Oh, you're on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, but maybe you don't need to decide tonight or even this month.
Yeah.
Maybe I think you need to give the letters a little time.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we just send the audit committee letter to the audit committee once more and ask them if we can expect a response.
Do we know whether the audit committee has a staff person?
That's a good question.
Because all the council committees, Tina, have a staff person, and this is kind of a quasi committee. But if the audit committee has a staff person, they should have been copied on this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something you could ask Jackie or somebody. A lot of these committees have a clerk. not a staff person, but a clerk, right?
Mhm.
I'm assuming we got the letter to Palmisano's aide at least also.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, this is an uncomfortable time to lead. So thank you all for, you know, doing everything that you can to try to be fair and balanced, but also try to respond to how this particular group is feeling and thinking. I mean, I know that when we talked about this at our December meeting, we had unanimous support, and we heard a lot of accounts of, you know, that just support that something needs to happen differently than what's been happening. So we're as actionable as we could possibly be and as thoughtful, I think, in how we moved these items forward. And if our meeting our meeting next week is a free thought conversation about, you know, how people are feeling about their service on the commission and how people are feeling about whatever the state of the situation is with the response we may or may not receive. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it being dialogue, and talking about some of the options that we have moving forward. We're not going to be able to advance our work plans this month, or you know, I don't even know, I don't even know if we want to advance executive nominations for 2021. I know that our positions don't go away just because we started a new year, from what I'm told. So we're still like in our positions, but it is our duty to have that process happen. So yeah. So
The new people will start in February, right?
right.
So you could wait till they start.
Mhm.
There's only 2 of them, so it's, you know, they're going to be a little bit like people always are in their first meeting, deer in the headlights, like, what am I voting for? But they can always abstain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to meet with them individually too, and just like be like, you know, answer any questions they might have. And, you know, I don't want to persuade them in any which way, but I also like let them know what's been going on so that they're not, I mean, how, you know,
Right.
I feel.
So, but when we have, you know, Kamara's space on the panel is vacant. So it might be good to see if either of them are interested. I mean, other commissioners might be interested, but it's always good to like.
Yeah, totally. And I think we did mention this at our last meeting. I could be mistaken, but I remember saying that, like, if anybody's interested in a seat on exec, like, that's something that you can talk to me about. And I know Mandy had said that she was. So that conversation did happen with the full commission. So we can remind people that we'll be making those decisions in February, and putting that off, and that maybe we just have a kind of I don't know, is it a waste of people's time to just say, like, how's everyone feeling? We took a big action at our last meeting and here's where we're at. Let's just talk about it.
You will also have an update, right? Because you will have met with the civil rights director.
We will have that update. Any other ideas about the approach for the agenda for this month?
Are you going to put the public art on consent? You were not able to see Marlena's drawings at the panel meeting, but they're, as well,
I can't, they're mind blowing.
Did you look at them?
That might be, I have not been able to look at them, but you know what? That might actually be pleasant.
They are really mind blowing, and they're also a really good counter story to the seal, which is on the same floor. And so that's really good dialogue about, you know, this artifact that represents European American settlement in Minneapolis, and then these pieces that Marlene is doing, which are all about Dakota values. It's kind of really how she tackled that is just so moving.
that might be uplifting to give that some time.
And if you want, I mean, I also did an update for the panel on the new pieces in the building. I just showed pretty pictures of things in progress, and I'd be happy to do that. You just tell me what you need, but I do need some approvals.
Yeah, of course. So should we give Mary a little, or those projects a little bit more time this month, because we are in a little bit of a hold steady pattern with sort of the next steps with the actions we took in December. We're kind of in a pause, but also I do think that dialogue about how people are feeling about their roles on the commission and what is possible moving forward based on the conversations that we may or may not have is pretty important for us to give some time and space to. Does that sound like a good use of time? And then suspend the nominations, suspend the executive seat slate, suspend the retreat, the work plans, and just have a dialogue about, you know, what our options are, what possible next steps there might be, and let people have a dialogue, and then get a presentation of good work that's happening at the city with artists that we have been part of, as a, maybe it's kind of good for morale. I don't know. Does that sound like a good strategy, you guys?
Do you think you should also maybe just ask people how they would like to do the February meeting, considering where they're at and that they'll have these two people, new people?
Yes.
Might be good to get people's input on what February looks like.
How do you welcome two new commissioners to a body that feels like it's on its last hinge?
I wanted to mention I did invite them to January's meeting because I know they're going to be voted on this month by biz next week and then council the week after. So they'll be approved this month. So I just said, come. I said, you can't vote, but you can see what and Jeffrey always wants to be invited. He's been to the last 2 or 3 of our meetings. So he knows what's going on already. So
that's great, Tina. That's good.
Yes. So I just want to give you a heads up that I sent them invites.
That's right. Jeffrey was there.
That's a good thing. Yeah. Well, we're not going to have a vote. But we'll just discuss, like, what does February look like then? I think that is a really great way to approach it too, because it's like, we need to think about what are we trying to accomplish without having, you know, if we're gonna go in and say we're gonna define our role and we're going to focus on compliance and what that means and find our champions, and give that energy or not. So, okay. Anybody have anything else to add? Okay. I'm sorry that I'm feeling lost in my leadership role for this particular position as well. But I hope you know that I still am dedicating time and having conversations and wanting to be as helpful as possible to kind of like help us through this set of challenges that we face. And I am proud of us for sending our letters. So hopefully it's at least spurs some dialogue, right? As it has. It works out.
I think you've been valiant, Joan. I hope you can
That's nice.
I guess take that to heart at least.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a nice evening. It's been nice to see you and talk to you. Nice to see you, Mary. I hope you're doing good. And we'll carry this out. I will put together a draft agenda tomorrow and send it around. I know we need to get that submitted by Friday. So we will give Mary a little extra time. Let's do some good morale and look at some good work by some great artists in our city, and have a conversation about what's possible and next steps and what February looks like. That's enough.
So, Joan, you're going to draft the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take
Have
care.
a nice night, everybody.
Thank you.